Kansas City Commission to order. Certainly.
Happy birthday.
Oh my God.
Happy birthday to you, Lord. Happy birthday, dear Joe. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, honey.
Very good. Very good. Would you please send the invocation in your
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to be here. And Lord, we're grateful for the rain. And we're grateful for every person that serves the city of Canyon in every capacity. And Lord, just help us as we look at the budget to make sound decisions. And just ask that you bless our community in Christ's name. Amen.
hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So at this time, that takes us to our budget work session.
Welcome, Mr. Lyons.
Birthday, Joe.
Thank you, Paul.
Kick us off, Joe.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Before I turn over to finance to go over the budget information, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's been involved in this, especially our city commission. We know this is a busy time to go over everything, and we put things in a lot of detail to try to help help for this commission to make the best decision they can for our community going into this budget. The budget, as I always say, is one of the most, if not the most important things that we do as an organization. So just please keep that in mind. There's been a lot of man hours from these two gentlemen in the finance department to the staff members that sit out in the audience on all the input. We put a lot of time into this. Please make this an informal setting. We want dialogue. I've talked to staff about that. So if there's questions, please don't hesitate to ask. This is supposed to be just a back and forth. No, we're not making formal motions like in our regular meeting here. So if there are questions, if if there are especially questions about what we're thinking in the future on, we've talked about future growth of our fire department and our police department and evolution of that, as well as our other departments, please don't hesitate to ask. And so we're here to answer those questions as best we can, to have that dialogue back and forth with this elected body and where we're going in our minds. And if you guys have thoughts about that, we definitely want to hear from that. Obviously, the budget is still, like it has been since we've been doing it, very heavy on public safety. We're no different than any other city, any other county. Public safety is always the big piece. So nothing against anybody else, but that's very common in other cities across the United States. But with all that being said, Bo, do you want to jump into this?
Get things started. What we're looking at today is a preliminary budget. The actual proposed budget has not yet been filed. There are still a lot of numbers in here that are estimates and still some information that we are still awaiting. First item I want to point out here on the first page is taxpayer impact statement. This is a new requirement of the state as of September of 2025 that include this information. Median household income, tax rate, and estimated property tax based on that median homestead taxable value. We don't have a proposed tax rate for 2026 yet, but this statement is still required, so we're using the most recent information, which is the 2025 as the current year and 2024 as the prior year. Next page, we're looking at the budget calendar. Right now, we are there at the top with our first work session. 2 weeks from today, if y'all determine that it's necessary, we can have a second work session. But we will not have certified values or the certified truth in taxation tax rates until the first week of August. So August 4th, that is set up as a key meeting. That's when we're gonna be looking to have a proposed tax rate from the commission. This is the tax rate, as we say, we will not adopt a tax rate above this amount. It's also the tax rate that we include in the public notices for the public hearing. So we're gonna be looking for that on August 4th. The week of August 10th, we don't have an actual date yet, but that will be the public hearing on the budget and potential budget adoption. And then the following week after that, August 13th, will be the tax rate, public hearing, and tax rate adoption. Our deadline set by the state is Monday, August 24th. So we're trying to fit all this in the month of August. Right now, that way we can go through these discussions, receive it, some input, and make sure that everybody is informed of what's being included in the budget process. So let's look at some numbers.
Do we need to go over any of those dates and get something solidified?
At the end of this work session, I will need to know if y'all plan on or would like to have a work session on July 21st. And then I do need a date for the budget public hearing and budget adoption date. August 10th, that's a Monday, was the date that has kind of been floating around right now as a potential date for that meeting. Sorry, maybe it's full mode here. Bring up my calendar. So August 10th, there is a staff event on the 11th, so that Tuesday is not available. And the 12th, 13th, or 14th. I believe so far what I've heard is the 10th is the date that would work the best for those that's what
As a reminder, we did not do a second budget work session last year. I'm not sure that makes any sense to this year, but we didn't do one last year. Okay. We'll come back to that.
Jumping into the numbers. Here we have a quick summary of the general fund, utility fund, and golf fund, our three major funds. We are increasing from a 27.6 million budget to a 28.7. That is a roughly 4% increase. I also want to point out these transfers from the utility fund to the general fund and the golf fund. You're going to see a decrease there in the golf fund, but an increase to the general fund. And that general fund is enough of an increase. There you can see the comparison of the two. This current budget is 1.3, almost 1.4 million, and next year's budget it would be 1.4, almost 1.5 being transferred from the utilities. I also want to point at the very bottom, as it stands right now, this is a balanced budget. You'll see that those zeros all across the box. Some significant items for the revenue. First, property tax. It's for all property tax revenue. It is a $265,778 increase, or 4.2% increase in property tax revenue. Just over 325,000 for operations. That was kind of our goal, somewhere around 325 just for the M&O. And then tiers funds, 16,711. And then actually a decrease in the debt service of over $76,000. That's because we were applying the over collection of the tax year 2025 to the INS rate for 2026. We'll get into more details about the property tax here just. For sales tax, it's a 7% increase. For franchise fees, that is a 6% decrease following recent trends. We did talk about a potential utility fee or convenience fee. This could either be revenue or it could be actually a decrease in expenses because we are currently paying those fees of about $132,000. The goal would be to set aside $100,000 of that to the utility fund, CIP fund for potential wastewater treatment facility expansion. Begin pre-funding that potential project. The 1% increase in water and sewer utility revenue, a 73% increase in building permit fees. That's just matching what our current demand is. That office has been very busy in recent months. A 21% or $204,560 increase. That's the transfer from the utility fund to the general fund. And then the 25% decrease in the transfer to the golf fund, or almost $106,000. any questions you'll have about just these revenues before we start looking at expenses? Okay. Significant changes to expenses. Personnel, it's an increase of $478,372. That does include a 3% merit increase for civilian and fire department full-time positions. It's also the second year of implementing the city's police department step pay schedule. Within that schedule, there are actually 3 increases that our police officers receive. First, happening on October 1st, we're increasing the percentage, moving towards 80% of Amarillo's 24-25 pay scale. Also on October 1st is a CPI adjustment, using the average CPI for October, November, and December of the prior year. For this year, that would be 2.6%. That adjustment is to make sure that we don't fall behind other cities, so we're catching up with the first adjustment, and then we're staying competitive there with that second adjustment. And then the third increase would happen on the anniversary of the individual's hire or promotion date, when they would progress down in the step scale. Then looking at personnel, there's $39,595 for an additional full-time firefighter position for only 6 months. And also the city's Safer Grant match for 3 firefighter positions. If we do receive that grant, that net amount the city would have to cover is at almost $56,000. So the full revenue is there, the full expenses are budgeted, but that net amount is at almost $56,000. Then we have $12,000 included for equipment for the 1 firefighter position for 6 months. There's 15 AEDs throughout city facilities that need replacement for almost $30,000. A hydraulic rescue ram for the new fire engine. Operating costs of $11,400 for the new fire facility. So once the training facilities are opened, they're operating. We're cleaning that facility. We're paying electricity, paying for heating, air conditioning. That's what that is set aside for. Then we're looking to start pre-funding the replacement of the main fire engine that is included, that was paid for from bond proceeds over the next 20 years. For that to happen over 20 years, the actual payment would be over $50,000 each year. We weren't able to include the full $50,000 in this year, so we're including 10 with plans to progressively increase that in the coming years. Then annual payment for capital equipment fund for the purchase of 2 patrol units for the police department. Right now the estimate was $140,000. Their payment from the general fund to the capital equipment fund for those vehicles was $29,400. Then annual payment for the purchase of a used dump truck for the street department of $98,025. Their annual payment to the capital equipment fund would be $5,510. Then a deputy city secretary position for 6 months. For that 6 months at $65,371. This deputy city secretary position would not be a permanent position. That individual would progress to the city secretary position. And then that new position that was created would become a receptionist position for the city manager office. Then $35,000 for the Amarillo Health District to comply with new mandates. $50,000 for pre-funding the purchase of a server. Estimated cost right now is over $100,000. This time last year, that estimated cost was about $75,000, and we included over $30,000 in the current budget. That cost has now increased over $100,000 as demand for computer chips has increased. So we're having to add more this year and actually finish the funding for that server in the following year. Then $10,500 for a 5-ton HVAC unit. It says City Hall, but that's actually for the community center. $24,000 for the water conservation consultant. $50,000 to comply with the new federal EPA lead and copper regulations. $10,000 for wastewater farm soil moisture monitors. $12,500 each to be set aside for water line and wastewater water line replacement. That's not for any specific line, but being set aside in preparation for when it's needed. The goal would be that that amount for each of those would be $100,000 each year. In prior years, that anything we put in there ultimately gets cut for other items. So So this 12,500 is a starting point that we can, again, start progressing up each year. $50,000 to the utility CIP fund for land easements. $100 transfer, as I mentioned before, for potential wastewater treatment facility expansion. $200,000 for Myra Park Utility Unit 2 waterline oversizing project. $200,000 for part of the funding for the 15th Street MPO Phase 1 project. $214,701 for contingency or fund balance increase. That's part of our plan that was presented prior to increase our fund balance back to within compliance with current policies. And then $50,000 being set aside for insurance claims contingency after last year's hailstorm and paying the deductible on all the vehicles. That really took a hit on us, on our operations. So we want to start setting aside this money for any potential insurance claims that we have. I also want to mention part of this $200,000 being set aside for the CIP for the Myra Park Unit 2 waterline oversizing. We would like $100,000 to come from the Brown Road Railroad project to help support this project. We've got over $325,000 sitting in the general fund CIP account for that project. We believe that that was set aside as part of a budget as an action of the commission, and in order to move that to be used for another project, we believe that may require commission action. We're not asking for that now, but may require a commission action in order to use that money for something. All right, what's not included? These first two are these two bullet items. It's 3 part-time positions for community wildfire protection plans. This would allow us to do more controlled burns in our community. The first one would be the coordinator, and the next 2 positions would be technicians to help facilitate, fulfill those actions that come through the plan. And the fire department's also once again requested a fire marshal position, a full-time street department maintenance position, several equipment items here, a skid loader, a pickup for planning and development, mosquito fogger, water department, hydrovac, more pickups for the water department, and then also kind of going to the bottom, a mower for the wastewater department and wastewater department truck also. Right now we are building up our cash balance in the capital equipment fund for a large purchase that we are planning to make October of 2027. As we are trying to build that balance, we're not able to authorize several of these equipment requests that are valid requests, but we're having to delay purchases of those equipment as we prepare for that October 2027.
Of the golf carts.
Correct. Other items, wastewater full-time position for construction inspector, wastewater variable frequency drive, and a 6-inch bypass pump for wastewater overflow. Those are the items that were requested by staff but are not included in this budget.
Is that all the items?
There are some
Large
smaller,
scale.
but these are the significant ones. We're start looking at long-range plans. That's kind of a very general overview of the budget itself.
On vehicles, do we purchase outright or do we do a lease program?
Most of our vehicles we purchase outright through the capital equipment fund, and then the departments pay that fund back the replacement cost of the next vehicle that we purchased. That fund started at just $1 million.
On the AED replacement, is there grant possibilities to go out for that possible?
We haven't looked at that, Robin, on AEDs, to be honest, so we've not really discussed that. Any idea if AEDs would be subject to possible grant funding?
let's look at some long-range plans that we are preparing for within this budget. Of course, we have new and sustainable growth. As our city grows, we have more development. We need to plan our utility service expansion, our increased demand on our public safety and staffing needs that go with that, and also our wastewater. We are getting closer to capacity on our wastewater treatment plant, and there are potential facility purchases or more expansion there on the treatment process in order to meet growing demand. For fire department personnel, fire department would like to have, would find it necessary to have 6 additional positions on our crew right now. Let me scroll down to this right here. This right now, 16 full-time positions. For each staff, that's 1 lieutenant per shift, because we have three shifts, 1 driver, and then 2 firefighters for each shift. For a full build-out, we would need 6 additional just firefighters. That's 4 firefighters per shift. This year's budget does include 1 position for 6 months. That would be the plan moving forward. 6 months each year, which would actually take 12 years in order for us to reach that full build. We are, of course, looking at other opportunities such as the SAFER grant. That would be 3 firefighters, partially covered for the first 3 years, which would definitely help us get to that position. But right now, we still have a long ways to go for what is being considered a full build out for our ships. There is also the fire marshal that is included on there as well, and then the 3 part-time positions I mentioned earlier for the community wildfire protection fund. They're just part-time; they are not included on this chart here, but you do see the fire marshal there at the bottom as part of the 23 full-time positions. So I will also point out we've gone from 6 full-time positions in fiscal year 2020 to 2021 to the current budget for next year, including 16.5, and we've increased their personnel costs by over $1 million.
I have a question. Chief Gwen, can you kind of explain what you, I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but what do you get when you get those 4 extra officers? I mean, those 6 extra firefighters, like what do you get that you don't have today?
Last already.
Okay.
There's a NFPA, National Fire Protection Association standard out there, 1720, that for a city of our size and density, we should be getting 10 firefighters on scene with our initial one. That's 2 engines and a ladder truck. Do better than we used to, but we're still not there. Still relying on a volunteer response, which we do. 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. It's very sketchy. Well, really it depends a lot on availability of our career firefighters and all the volunteer force. Their day off. That gets us to that point where we're not so worried about that number, get that minimum number of first response.
So does it cause you coverage issues having this amount of, I mean, like, you don't have any, like if somebody takes off, how are you?
Exactly. That's another issue right now. Our minimum staffing from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is 4 non-staff members. It's lieutenant, driver, and 2 firefighters. If I have 1 take off, it's calling back in 1 on overtime. If right now today, my lieutenant's off, so we've had to backfill that space. We offer that to the volunteers during the week. Once again, very limited availability for someone to come in for that position. Get 1 on long-term injury, on 16th. 6 would do on each shift. I could have 2 people in office on the minimum staff. Without calling anybody.
Which is not unheard of. I mean, a vacation and a sickness.
Especially right now, everybody's using leave hours for vacation.
Right.
All right, looking at police department personnel. First issue we had to face with police department is we couldn't build the department because we weren't keeping the ones that we had. And so last year we implemented the step pay program to have a more competitive pay schedule. That is in place. This is the second year. Our goal was to be 80% of Amarillo's schedule for 24-25 in 3 years. So next year would be, I should say next year, I should say 27-28 would be the final year of getting us there. Then the CPI adjustments on top of that, continuing forward, should keep us within a competitive range. But we currently have 3 shifts also for the police department. We have 4 officers per shift. The desire would then also be to have 5 officers per shift. You can see the history here of police department pay. Started at 29. Right now we're at 34. We're not adding a new one in the current budget, so staying at 34 there. The hope would be every 2 years we would add another position for the police department. So in order to add those 3 positions, that would take the next 6 years to get to what the police department is. And also very similar to the fire department, from 2020 to 2021 to the current year budget, you're looking at almost around $1 million increase.
But even with those, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, those 25, that year 22, 23 to 23, 24, those are all SROs, right? That didn't increase your staffing on patrol, right?
We increased one with the grant. That was a aggressive grant when we started at 100%.
Right.
So we still have that officer, the other 4 for SRO.
So we haven't added staffing to you since before 2020 to patrol out of the city budget.
Before me.
That chart there shows the progression of the personnel costs for the police department. Potential changes we're also looking towards are, there's a legislative session coming up next year. We'll anticipate some changes to the regulations for property tax revenue. A lot were filed in 2025 that did not progress, but kind of gave us an idea of what could potentially be on the horizon. If I had to guess, what would most likely be up for grabs would be the city tax rate. Currently allows us, as a smaller city, to go above the voter approval tax rate. It's a difference of a 3.5% increase in revenue to potential of going over an 8% increase right now. So that could potentially be impacted, not next year, but in years to come. Debt capacity, we are currently very close to our max for our debt capacity according to our policies. Basically just saying we need to pay off some debt before we issue. There are no plans right now for new debt for the next couple of years, but according to our policy, we couldn't implement. Utility rates and service fees still following the NEGEN study. Succession planning, we do have a lot of key positions that are retiring or planning to retire, and we're planning for those not just replacements, but also making sure that city services won't be interrupted during those transition periods. Fund balance reserve policy, as I mentioned earlier, there's $214,000 included in this year's budget to build our fund balance back within current policies over the next 8 years. And then EPA lead and copper rule, new requirements as part of the inventory. Notices I went out and over again last week asking for people rentals, what their pipes are made out of. We're still collecting that data. That deadline to provide that inventory is November of 2027. Any action after that deadline, we're not exactly sure what that's going to be, but we're still collecting information from other cities, from the EPA, other resources. We're trying to learn as much as we can. Before I go into property tax, any questions you'll have about that? Okay, quick summary of changes in property tax revenue. Total appraised value, again, these are only estimates. A 4% increase for all property. For the average homestead, that's a 1% increase. Taxable value is a 2% increase for average homestead, that's 1%. The number that we use in our budget calculations for generating how much revenue we need to include in the budget, we're using a 2% increase in taxable value. Looking at changes for property tax rates, our current tax year's rate is 0.51181. Using an estimate that got us around the $325,000 increase for operations, that rate would be 0.54073. You see that's an 8.5% increase for operations, but a 3.6 decrease for debt service, which comes to a 5.7 increase from the prior year in the tax rate. And looking at actual dollar amounts, operations, as I mentioned before, $325,476, or a 7% increase. Tiers fund 16,711, 28% increase, and then the decrease in the debt service, 76,408, or 5% increase. So overall, that's a 4% increase in property tax revenue.
Bo, I'm having a hard time understanding the difference between the 5.7 and the 4%. If we've got new properties added to the tax rolls, I would have thought that the total property tax revenue would be higher than the increase in the total property tax rate. I'm missing something here, and I'm not sure what.
First thing I want to point out is you mentioned the new property. With the estimates, this is a lower increase in taxable property than what we had last year.
But it still would be more than last year.
Volume was.
Overall.
Not necessarily the revenue, because it's an increase in revenue. So you're not. So we have this amount here budgeted based off of the property tax. So if we increase, we're not looking at total amount, just the increase from the prior.
Seems like it would. Seems like if you had exactly the same amount of taxable property, that number would be the same, taking the tiers out. But then, if you're adding some property to the tax roll, seems like that increase in revenue would be higher than the tax rate increase.
There's also increased amount in those that qualify for the tax freeze.
So the value we use in our calculations is quite a bit less than the total taxable value that they give us for estimates. That's because we do a estimate of what the 65 and over is gonna affect us by. And we use that same calculation every year. It's a calculation we set up first year we were here. We use that to modify. So we're at 1.2 billion for the value that we're using in our estimates. And that's only generating us additional tax revenue of 265,000. So the combination of that increased value of 2% and then the 5.7% on the total tax rate it nets us a 4% increase in tax revenue.
So the 65 and older is hitting us harder than the new properties. Is helping us. Is that
And
what-
we suspect the new exemption on business
So that's
first.
true. There's a significant exemption of business personal property that's new in this tax year as well. Which that would be reflected in their taxable value.
Another way maybe why it's not as high as it has been. That's our suspicion.
But I will say, this is all just based on estimates, and the actuals are they're gonna vary from all of this.
Or if I can oversimplify it, a 2% increase in property value plus a 4% in the revenue came from a 6% increase in the tax rate.
But the 5.7 is an increase in the actual tax rate, though.
Yeah, okay.
I may have to have some side tutoring or something to understand how it, I don't know. I get where there's some additional pieces that could decrease our taxable property, but
I also mentioned
the senior tax freeze and all too, but
also the sales tax adjustment on that as well.
So we have the property value reduction, property tax value reduction, half cent pushes on that as well. We have to take Joel has to fill out a sheet. There's a revenue amount that we calculate in that sheet based on the year's sales tax collected. That converts into an actual rate, a tax rate, and it's reduced from ours. So that compresses things as well.
Say it's a compression rate.
Yes, and so that's one of my biggest worries. 8% is what it used to be, is 8%, and so now we have a yearly of 3.5%, right? 3.5, and it's pushing that down. So a rate comes in, whatever a sales tax is on that 0.5, and it's deducting from that 3.5% too, Gary. And so it all plays. The new House bill on the business property, personal property, is now $125,000. I think that was it was a significant increase. I'm trying to remember the previous amount, but that's one thing that went into effect. And I'm talking to my other peers, a lot of others are seeing that business personal property exemption increased. It's playing a factor in their taxes as well.
Calculation to go through and get to this final number, there's over 35 steps, and that's not even the last one. After that, that could potentially change that as well. It's a very lengthy calculation that there's just a lot of adjustments that we try to make up for in this calculation right here, which is why we're using only that 2% there, but it's not fully captured all the adjustments.
but we're actually using a higher value in the budget calculations for 2026 than 2025.
Correct.
I may have to just stick into it offline or something.
The business personal property went from 2,500 to 125,000. That's what the change was.
So would that already be out of
That would
that
be,
billion to
yes, it would be out of it.
26?
And that's what Joel was saying, yes.
So it's already deducted from that.
That-
So,
We suspect that's why it's not as great as it has been. We suspect that's probably pushed that number down some. Just our suspicions. We don't know what those exemptions are completely. But it would be out of that number area, you're correct. Before our
it's
calculation.
already out of that number.
Yes.
And we're using a higher number for 2026 than we used for 2025.
Yes.
All right, so looking at the history of the tax rates, we don't yet have the Truth in Taxation certified calculations from Marion County. We're not expecting that till the first week of August. So just using this estimated tax rate, you can see how it compares with prior rates. This solid rate line here being the total tax rate, blue being the de minimis rate. Anything above that would automatically trigger an blue being the voter approval tax rate, that's that only 3.5% increase, and then the orange being the no new revenue tax rate. And then you can see here, green being tax rate for operations, orange being the tax rate for debt. And 2022 will be an applying fund balance in the debt service fund, lowering the INS rate. 2023, very little was being used for the INS rate. We started going back up here, and then we had the public service INS, the bond, last year, and then moving forward there. Something that was asked of me to kind of show moving here is what were the dollar amount of the increase for M&O during these prior years. Go back to that real quick. So these are actual numbers of the increase just for the M&O. This is the amount that was collected or budgeted, and this is the increase from the prior year. So at 304, 444, and then a large one there, 508,422 increase for M&O. And then once we started increasing the INS rate back down, we wanted to keep it close to 300,000. That's where that was there. Budget, we're switching from budget actual. The goal was to be $300,000 for the current year. There's some difference when switching from actual to budget. And then right now for next year, that being 325,476. The reason why we are not able to get up to the 444,000 or 518,000 is because we are not increasing our new property at the level that we were in those prior years. All right. We've got maybe under 15 minutes. Is there anything else that y'all wanted to touch on? Being close to running out of time.
You know, this is just a thought of changes in what we're adding. To me, in discussion, some of the discussion I had individually, I think, to me, I'm concerned that we need to add the fire positions on quicker and maybe go to one full position for the full year. You know, I think, if I remember in my mind, I think we're down to 16 part-time volunteer positions. If I remember right, I was thinking we were around 20, last year and all too. And at a point, we just got to be able to get that done. And if somebody's off sick, I don't know. To me, that just looks critical that somehow we figure out that piece. So
12 years is a long time.
that is a long time, and especially if we were able to see, the volunteers steady and coming in when we need them, or maybe increase those some. I don't know. I'm concerned about that, and I haven't had a chance to visit with the chief, but if some of those positions could actually help with a controlled burn, I think that's something we knew that a really dry year and dry that late, and we had fuel from last year. It's an exceptional time to try to do that, but not having personnel to get that done. And I don't know if one more firefighting position, it couldn't hurt to have some margin to do those sort of things too in addition. So, but to me, that's what really hits me is where, we're kind of critical and short. So,
Chief, you showed to currently have 16 full FTEs. How many part-time employees do you have?
Three positions, part-time firefighter positions.
Has it been vacant for a while, or? Is that a difficult position to fill?
No, I have two candidates, I just have to say.
Joe, this is just an ask. I know, so 6 months is 39,595. Was just wondering, we're looking at the deputy city secretary for 6 months. If we cut that to 3, that would be almost enough to make that difference up, to put it on kind of, I don't know, to me, it's really hitting me that it feels like that's just pretty critical, on being able to get firefighters out on the street. So,
I have no opposition to reducing the 6 months to 3 months, Mr. Mayor.
Cody, you have expertise in
Not,
first
not
responders.
zero expertise in that area, but would you have opposition to moving your part-time to FTE? Do you have to a full-time? I mean, I know there's a reason you're doing that, I just don't know what it is.
Okay, the part-time position comes in and helps cover when we have vacancies, for that 12 hours, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That keeps me from having to call in a full-time on call or overtime, it's cheaper. So that's how we utilize that position. And I don't want to sound ungrateful. One firefighter is great. Don't get me wrong here. I have 3 shifts. It's gonna help one shift. I still have 2 shifts that are short. So we're still gonna be calling back people to cover vacancies on the other 2 shifts.
As I mentioned to several of you guys, I came from an organization, and we have 8 on a shift. And Dennis and I have kind of reached an understanding that we both think 6 on a shift is satisfactory at this point. So Border Fire, Pampa Fire, and several of the other full-times have 8. And I can't remember how many Amarillo has on a shift. Do you remember? So who knows about them? But, I know Border and Pampa Fire full-time, they were 8 strong on a shift. So I think we're being pretty reasonable on our long range of doing 6.
I don't know, I'd throw that out. I'd like to see if we can figure out how to, instead of, for 6 months, go ahead and fund 1 position for a year.
Can you tell me on the spot what that would do? What would, you just divide that in half, 65,000 in half, so we're looking at 22,500 and some change. That's right, or my less, no, 32, excuse me. Add 32,000 to the 39, plus your equipment and everything. And we have that in there, John. It was already in there. That 12,000's right there.
Whether you're for a full year or 6 months, it's still.
The same amount. So 39 plus the 32. Because I think it was around,
2 year, little short of the other half of that additional firefighter for the next 6
That you just close.
add the 39 to that. That's 39, right? 39. Full-time firemen's like, is it 80? Is it about 80?
still under.
I wonder, is that what we looked at, Dennis, around? Somewhere there. So we're 8,000 away. I'm not sure that bridges the gap on being able to do prescribed burns.
And I agree with that. That's maybe a different topic, but I'm trying to figure it out. So, and back again to Commissioner Kramer, the 12 years versus, if we could, I don't know, that does seem like
Shrink that somehow. 12 years is a long time.
And it's possible, Robin, because we have this year and next year on the police salary increase. So once that's, kind of at its peak, that might allow some more capacity to add on. So until we get through that, there is a potential that could be expedited. We haven't looked that far out, Mr. Mayor, as well on that, but that is one positive.
Think about 12 years down the road, likely we're going to need more than what we're actually anticipating today. 12 years down the road's a lot of things can change. So,
Yes, it can.
Yeah, but that's not all they're asking for. They're also asking for a part-time coordinator, 2 part-time technical positions. So, I mean, and a fire marshal. So like, how do you prioritize those things?
And I prioritize it.
Mhm.
I need firefighters. I need people to jump on there. I need the fire marshal too, don't get me wrong. But my concentration has been on every single firefighter. So that
Because based on the 12-year plan, you're not going to get a fire marshal for
I won't see
those. Yeah, that's not even like none of us will see it.
And that's the thing, is we're trying to do our best to balance this.
Actually, if I could add those part-time technicians or seasonal employees for 90 days during our peak season to do mitigation projects. They're not full-time, they're not regular part-time, they're seasonal.
And did we have a cost associated with that?
Hourly. Remember, do we have a cost on the seasonals?
The coordinator's $30 an hour. The coordinator will be able to work up to 24 hours a week year round. To his planning and contracts.
So your coordinators year round, and your 2 part-times are seasonal. How many? How often?
90 days, up to 90 days of the regular season.
I guess we dig into that a little bit more. Is there anything else though that we need to, we're getting close to 4:30 here? So,
Other support on doing deputy to 3 months and adding that portion to the firefighter to see if we can get to 1.
Is your $50,000 on your EPA lead and copper regulation compliance? Is that an estimate?
Chris, you want to speak to just some of that and what we're trying to figure out, you and Eric both?
Yeah, I don't know that we have a good feeling what's gonna be required by next November. I did talk to the city manager today. I think that visual inspection of these meter boxes, will be sufficient. But still find that staff to do that, right? So I don't know if we can contract that out. I've gotten some pricing from one local contractor previously. That was for excavating outside the meter box. They're telling me today that the meter box would meet that requirement, so. The quote that we had originally got was like 100 and Scott. So we went low with that, just to try to get something worked in. Obviously understanding that we might have to supplement from the water budget, public works budget at that point, to kind of help with.
No one really has an answer on any of this right at this point, neither is TCEQ.
Because the rules aren't clear yet.
Yeah, and even in some of the stuff talks about, even it's on our responsibility to look at from the meter to the house. There is some literature in there, and so, which we would never be responsible for, but nobody really has a good grasp on this.
The guidance I got today was that if we can visually inspect both sides of the meter from the meter box, document that, it should be there.
And it's just a reporting function
It's an in,
for a time period.
well, no, it was basically a 3-year timetable to get that inventory. Right now, we have a lot of unknowns. That deadline is November 27th, to really kind of establish those unknowns as what they actually are.
in theory for 5,300 meters?
Well, I say that, we were able to eliminate about 1,000
Because they were new,
because of, there's a lot of.
4,000.
Because it's not only lead, it's galvanized also. So there was a time period that was legal, right? And so we haven't been able to eliminate 47 those meters yet. The time we send out the notification, annual notification, we get a lot of people that reach out and say, no, mine is this, or we replaced it as this. Without documentation, we can't really change that. So it still has to stay exactly. We have a handful that are able to provide some sort of documentation, but the majority are not able to. This year, without us visually inspecting.
Would y'all like to have a work session at the next commission meeting? We will not have certified values, we will not have a certified, truth and taxation tax rates, until the August.
Is there and I guess with that, there's not a way to get close to the no new revenue rate and what that increase is gonna look like in the paper and all too, or?
Cannot, the state says until we have a certified amount from the county. Yes.
My mind, unless we have additional questions, but until we have more realistic values, there's not another reason to have another workshop until we have closer values of what we're looking at.
In a majority, we'll make the adjustment on the firefighter. At this point, that's the only thing I'm changing.
You can take contingency down from 240 to 210.
Yeah, probably could make the difference in one contingency to whatever, 4 or 5 grand, yeah.
And for the budget public hearing is August 10th, the date that would work for us.
Monday, August 10th, commission, does that date work for the majority of y'all? Be Monday instead of our typical Tuesdays. I think, Paul, you said you were good August 10th, right, Mr. Mayor?
3:30.
Yeah, we gonna, do we know what time we need to do that
It
one?
would be a 4:30 regular time.
4:30. Okay. Mr. Mayor, were you for August 10th? Monday, August 10th, budget hearing, 4:30. Couple minutes. We'll move it.
Yeah, let's take, it's 4:34, let's reconvene at 4:40. That works well.
Did you get that, Gretchen?
With that, I think we've got item number 5, the approval of the minutes of the meeting of June 16th, 2026.
If there are no changes, I move we approve.
Second.
A motion second to approve minutes as written. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Item number 6, public comment. Comments from interested citizens.
Nobody has signed in here.
Thank you. Item number 7, presentation from city engineer updating status of current public works projects. Adolfo. How are you today?
Good, how is everybody doing? I know you've been hard at work at it already for a while, so I'll try to keep it short to the point. I'll probably do the update. Kind of what I did is just listed what the project is, where they're at, and the status. I'm kind of doing the same thing. Starting with the Fourth Street ground storage tank. That project is under construction, and the contract's currently doing the demolition of the existing tank. And so it's pretty neat to see how sturdy that old tank still is. They thought they would be ready to start filling in that hole, but they're still about halfway only demoing that concrete. It's so old that concrete really set pretty good and pretty tough. So they've been hauling that out, and once they're done with that, they'll start building out that whole building foundation for the new tank. In the meantime, they are bypassing around that tank, and so everything's running through the one singular in-ground tank to go to the foundation. As far as I can tell, there haven't been any issues. Did you have any issues during bypass time? So luckily, we're able to keep enough water running through to meet the demands while we do that, since there won't be any other way to get the water through until that tank is complete. But that's where they're at on that now. So there's been a lot of work going on over there. If you've gone by, you've probably seen some of the equipment and the dirt that's out there, and piping that sticks up out of the ground and dumps into the old tank. And it's pretty neat to see. Not a lot of times you can see a utility project. It's all this stuff underground. And then the other big project you have going on is the Spring Canyon Utility Extension, which is the sewer project going down 2590 down Spring Canyon Parkway station. They've made their way all the way through 2590. They're going east on Spring Canyon Parkway, and the station itself, they've already excavated the hole for the wet well. They today actually set the wet well in place. Tomorrow they're going to pour the concrete around the base to kind of hold it there, and we'll start back. So that's pretty neat to see. I don't know if you ever drove by and saw the giant wet well that's sitting out there. It's like 35 feet long. And it's giant tube. So they got a crane set up and lowered into place. So they're making headway on that. The contractor on that project is also coordinating with the contractor that's going to be building the bridge across Spring Canyon Draw. So they're not in conflict when they go through. So it's my understanding that they are on schedule with each other to make sure that one isn't there before the other one needs to cross. And that way things don't get all done. So and we got the 8th Street sidewalks, which was the TxDOT funded project. That last time I was here, I think it had gone out for bid and now been awarded. Chris, do you know what their schedule is on that? Pretty quick, they were almost down the entire, is that the east side?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a TxDOT funded project, and they're overseeing the construction on it, so.
They are thinking they'll have it wrapped up before school end. They're on.
I don't see right now
They have aprons torn out today. I drove by today, Chris, and a lot of those aprons, yes, which they hadn't done last week, so that they're moving.
So that's moving along. I don't know, just haven't had any real questions or issues. We had some questions about utility poles we have to resolve, and so that didn't delay the project. And so moving along. Then we have the Phantom Creek water extensions. So in order to serve the upcoming development at the Phantom Creek property, which is west of 2590 on the west side, across from Spring Canyon. So, we're doing the sewer project that'll serve them, and now
currently designing the 2 water lines that are going to cross 2590 to serve that water. And it's gonna be 2 water lines, that way their system can be looped in, which will provide better, pressure, having it looped in capacity, and also allows if one of the lines were to go down, you have a secondary line. So that's underway. We have the design almost done, and we have started the text out right away crossing permits. So once that's completed, they can get to work pretty quick. Joe indicated that that's under different type of contract.
Yeah, legal's working on that contract. Chuck's working on that agreement with Spring Canyon. Utility contractor, I think it's Emerald Utility Contractors is, Monty Taylor is doing that. They are going to do the construction. So Adolfo's designing and coordinating with the design engineer, Mr. Dustin Davis. But their contractor that's on site right now, building Unit 4, as you've all seen, the big dirt pile, they're gonna construct this. And so in discussions with the owners, it's been made clear that those invoices will not go to them, they will just come to us on this piece. And so Chuck, I highlighted a lot of that in an email, commission was provided that email. Chuck is memorializing that, so we have to memorialize it that way, otherwise we have to go bid it out and procure it. So the way we've got it in this agreement, we won't have to do any types of solicitations. We can just use their contractor to build this. We expect this to be $250,000 to $300,000. And that was already prescribed in the COs that was issued. So good cooperation and coordination with Davey and Jeff.
Yeah, and GDI, we've been in contact with them about where they want the water lines to be, so they can line it up with their designs. So, that all that is coordinated with them. Then we have the master drainage plan, that Kimberly Horn's working on, but we are hoping to see on the drainage criteria manual. They did some comments, I think probably for me, so over the comments on the then we'll be, I think we're due to 10 when they start going for either public engagement or stakeholder engagement.
Maybe 4 weeks to getting maybe public engagement from our development community.
One project that's been going on for a while is the Lumberyard sewer line. That's a sewer line to serve Lumberyard, Hunter restaurant facility. The contractor went back on site to resume work. Then they had some issues with the design that they didn't kind of agree with, so they went back to their design engineer to verify the method that they want to use for construction. So I think the last they said is they're waiting on our approval of it, which I think we told them that they're fine. But most of it, we had a couple comments, and I think.
Yeah, they came back with some other details that we need to discuss.
Yeah, and once we approve that, they should start back up on that, hopefully they'll get that, completed. They're not gonna replace the whole line, just portions of the line that are still operating. Just that issues. As far as new development goes, Fire Park Unit 1 Phase 2, which is the second half of that Unit 1, which is on the west side of what they have already completed. That's moving along pretty quick. They're almost done with utilities. They got the water and sewer stuff, the water mains, sewer mains done. We're working on service lines to the lots and setting up meter boxes, or at least extending the service tubing out to where those meters will go. And they're also trenching for the private utilities, so they're going through them and so that's the utility side of it. The earthwork and paving contractor, they are kind of waiting on the utilities to be done to go in and build the roads and sidewalks on that. And then they also are pretty much done with the drainage channels inside the big pond. So once they're done with that pond, that's it for the drainage. So I think that's gonna be a big chunk of that project, is getting all the earthworks done for that main drainage pond. Once that's all done, I think then we can move on to north of that. I think that's the one.
So is this the drainage pond that we're looking at for green space and with?
Yes.
get some grass landscaping control too. And so once that's done, are we ready to get to that piece or what? So,
I don't know, I don't think we did the 100,000 in the budget this year. We're looking at that for next year, Gary. And so, just to remind you, what Gary's mentioning is there was a deal with, the developer and owner to do 100,000. The city would match 100,000 to do something in that green space. Nothing has been determined. Could it be grass? Could it be irrigation? Could it be a small place? Just something for that neighborhood. So Mr. Mayor was a big leader on that, so. We're moving there, we're putting that in not this coming budget, but next budget, Gary. That was my other
So that once they have all the work completed and they, the city accepts it and just take over ownership of that infrastructure, I'll probably about when the discussion of the coming up. Then we got Spring Canyon Unit 4. That's the project Joe mentioned earlier with GDI and AUC where they're building the last section of the west side of Spring Canyon at the sense. They've got pretty much all the utilities on the housing side done. And as soon as they finish with that and storm sewer, they're gonna have the paving contractor move in and do all the roads. So they've graded them out, but they haven't done any actual patching or anything to build the road. They're just gonna get messed up during the utility.
And they're doing the bridge across.
Yeah, and then so when they're done with that, they're going to move to the bridge, or they'll be doing it at the same time. They should be receiving culverts for that bridge sometime soon. Once they get those in, they're gonna immediately set them in place and start building that bridge. And that's also the script lift sewer project. So I'll do along pretty quick. That those contractors, pretty sure have a tight deadline that they're trying to stick to that the developer really forced on. So that's moving along pretty good.
What's the Crow edition? Is that?
Crow Edition, that's over on Fifth Avenue and Dimple Drive and.
I see.
East today.
Yeah, gotcha, yeah.
So that's the Crow Edition. I think they're developing one block. And so they did all their dirt work for their roads. The city went and relocated some utility lines right there. So once that was done, they started actually paving and doing the curb and gutter. They've done some concrete driveway aprons yesterday, today, and then they'll move in to do the actual asphalt.
These were those lots that Carol Pinson owned for
Yeah.
a long time.
Just didn't know what that was called.
So that's the Crow Edition. That's a small job. They're moving along pretty quick. They got started a little later than they wanted, but once they got going, they're moving pretty fast. And then the projects that the city's submitting for the Texas Water Development Board funding. I think I talked about these last time. It's upcoming. So
These were on the agenda to Adolfo,
yeah.
so.
So the 500,000 gallon elevated tank, that's been designed and submitted to TCQ for their review. They're gonna look at it to see if it meets their requirements, if it meets the demands to see. Kind of, you have to determine if it's necessary, if it works. So they're doing that. In the meantime, we're also fine tuning the design to add like lighting or a logo. So it's something that stands out. A project looks good at the entry part of the town where a lot of traffic comes through. But as far as for review for TCQ, all the pieces are there as far as the infrastructure needed to make it function. Then we have the Nicholas property wells, that's well 42 and 43. And the transmission line, that's over in the water right property that you guys own east of Rockwell Road wells. We can fit 2 wells out there. We had previous test holes, we used those for the design. That's been put together and submitted to TCQ for approval as well. What they're looking at on that is, what's the water demand for the city? Will this help supplement you in the future? Does this provide, necessary treatments, things like that? But just to make sure it's a project that is in line with the city. You can never have too much water, so not really an issue. With having more water than you might need, the main thing is that it produces water at a rate that doesn't overwhelm the adjacent wells, which we do that with well spacing, so it should be fine. Then the transmission line, we just want to make sure that we have accurate transmission line design, make sure there's no air building up in the line. so that's been submitted. Then we call it the redundant line from the Kim Road pump station all the way to I-27, where we put in that secondary line under the highway. But then we start calling that the redundant line.
Risk and resilience.
The risk and resilience line. Water development board doesn't like the word redundant. Because it serves a real purpose. It's not just there as a redundant system. It's there because you guys had an assessment for, the vulnerable parts of your infrastructure. The one line going from that pump station in town were to go down, you lose all your Kim Road and Rockwell Road well supply, as well as all the water coming from that road well supply. So it's super important to keep that running if that were ever to go down. I think we saw what happened in Odessa when their singular transmission line went down. They were in a lot of trouble without water for a few days. So that's the purpose of this line, is to avoid a situation like that. So that's been designed, and then we added recently a transmission line for the future wells that are in Spring Canyon, the west side of Spring Canyon, which is well 38, that's been drilled, that's owned by the school. Well 39, which is in Unit 4, that will be drilled in the future, and then the upcoming wells in the Phantom Creek property. So we're currently designing that transmission line to be able to carry water from those wells through the Phantom Creek property. It's going to end on the southwest corner of that property, which is at the intersection of E Lane and it's out there. It's county road, but the county's indicated we get permit to get the rest of the transmission line out to section 4. And that's the overall plan, is eventually those wells will go out to section 4, and when section 4 has its well field developed, it'll all be a separate system. That way you have another system that's not intertwined with your main system, and it has a little more of a backup, so that if one system goes down, you still have a water supply. It's independent. And so the goal is to take all the water going west up to section 4, and this will get us halfway there essentially. And it's easy to do now versus after Phantom Creek develops, because of alleyways, roads. So the goal is to get that constructed now with this water development board funding. It'll be a lot faster and cheaper to do it now. Well, also a lot cheaper water development board pays for it, but also just makes sense. So that's pretty much a rundown of everything you have under construction and projects that are upcoming. There's also, the design review team meeting where we come in and we discuss the projects or whatever the city might need an opinion on. A lot of it, is upcoming development or policy questions, things like that. So good enough. So that's always continuously going on. So I'm working a lot with Dustin and planning. So unless you guys have any questions about the specific projects, I don't want to take up too much of those.
We're all in good shape. I guess we'll talk about that.
Yeah, we're gonna go into detail on the water development board project. Aaron's gonna go and Chris. So we'll dive into that.
Mr. Grant,
Yes, please.
All right, thank you. And that takes us to item number 8, consider and take appropriate action on second and final reading of resolution number 17-2026, resolution of the City Commission of the City of Canyon approving a project funding agreement between City of Canyon and Canyon Economic Development Corporation related to direct financial assistance for matching grant dollars from the MPO for downtown revitalization. Michael.
Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. This is the second and final reading of the resolution for matching grant dollars for the MPO, downtown revitalization. The EDC board met on May the 21st and unanimously voted to approve the project funding agreement not to exceed $250,000, which would be paid out $50,000 a year over 5 years. It is a budgeted dollar amount. And we had a public hearing on June the 11th, and there was not any opposition.
I move we approve.
Have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 17-2026. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Michael. All right, item number 9, consider and take appropriate action on resolution number 18-2026. A resolution by the City Commission of the City of Canyon requesting financial assistance from the Texas Water Development Board, authorizing the filling of an application. I guess it's the filing of application for assistance in making certain findings in connection therewith. Looks like Bo, Chris.
Yes, sir, thank you very much. Kind of a reminder that this is a one-time grant opportunity from the state that's being administered by the Texas Water Development Board. This is a 100% grant. There is no city match for this grant. For cities our size, there's, for a single project, we can apply for up to $21 million. Previously, this was $15 million. They have since increased it to $21 million. It can only be used for water supply and infrastructure. It is not available for projects that related to drainage, flood control, or wastewater projects. And in order to receive the highest possible prioritization to potentially be awarded the grant, we need to be what's called ready to proceed, which means all planning needs to be done, submitted to TCEQ for approval, all acquisitions need to be done. We're not buying any property. Everything needs to go to where when we are awarded the grant, we are immediately ready to proceed with construction. The deadline for this grant submission is July 30th, so by the end of this month. As Adolfo had already mentioned, there are 6 items here. If you'll scroll down just a little bit more for me. There. The forestry ground storage tank. Even though we have already started this project, expenses that were incurred after or starting in June of 2025 are eligible for reimbursement. So we are including the forestry ground storage tank. Then there is the Spring Canyon elevated storage tank, the 24-inch risk and resilience transmission line at I-27.
It's better.
The Nicholas Wellfield, the water well transmission lines at Van Creek, Spring Canyon, and then $85,000 there for the grant administration. For a total for what we're considering one project, because we can only submit one project. So all of these components of one project is just over $19.7 million. Now, in order to submit an application for this grant, we do need a resolution from this body authorizing us for that solution.
Chris, Tanner, I know Dustin's not here, but Adolfo, can y'all speak to the intricacies of this application and what we've been doing? Tanner would probably be best.
Yeah, sure. There is quite a bit that goes into this application. Nelson and I have been looking into getting right of way and titles acquiesced prove to the Texas Water Development Board that there will be no delays or troubles getting access to the sites of these projects. This being 6 parts to the one project does make it a little complex. We've basically sextupled our workload by selecting multiple projects at sites. The Texas Water Development Board also, their main scoring for this grant is based on median household income, which really made it a strategic emphasis for us to be shovel ready because we get 10 bonus points with our median household income being what it is. It makes us less competitive to other municipalities less than 150,000 people. And so we're really putting a lot of effort in Adolfo especially in getting this shovel ready for that application.
Been a lot of time and effort on this. I was able to sit down with Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem this last week, and at the recommendation of Floyd Hartman, he has indicated that we should make some communication to our state elected officials in the West Texas region, and that we really need to get this project on their radar. And so I've asked Gary and Cody to help with that. Definitely need the whole commission as we go through this. I do think we're good on timing. I think Mr. Hartman will also help us with some of those intricacies and opening those doors. But I do think that it's a good feather for them if they do get a project from Austin awarded out here. We have not heard a lot of other communities applying in our region. But that is one thing that we really need to emphasize to the commissioners, that we do need our state elected officials' support. Mr. Mayor will be out of town next week, but Mr. Jones and I and some of the staff are going to meet with our county judge to garner her support with this project as well and go over it all. But we are asking for y'all's help to help get the word out to our state representatives and senators and our elected officials at the level to get this on their radar and garner support from them. It's going to take everything we got to get this. I cannot emphasize the difference that this project would make if we were awarded. It would be incredibly impactful. And that's why we've done everything we can. And big credit to Dolfo and his team for stepping up. They've not charged us for that. The only thing we have paid for is an environmental review, which is a requirement, and some of the things that Tanner has mentioned. We are spending a little bit on that to get everything shovel ready, but we are taking a huge step to try to make this happen. And it's a risk. We may not get it, but we're going to need the commission's help as well. It's not just us. So I'd be happy to have more one-on-one conversations with the commissioners on that. I'm really putting that in Gary and Cody's hand to kind of be at the lead from this body to help with that. We are working on talking points, Mr. Hartman and I, and Mr. Meyer. Dustin is helping on that. He's on vacation this week. And so we will visit with you guys one-on-one on that. That will be the next step. So I'll be reaching back out to you guys. Thank you to everybody on our city team that has helped make this possible. That includes you, Adolfo.
Move to adopt resolution number 18-2026.
Second.
Have a motion second to adopt resolution number 18-2026. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Opposed, like sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Bob. I do appreciate teamwork too. I was kind of privileged to be in a couple of meetings earlier on where kind of roundtable discussion and the pros, the cons. I was impressed with the discussion from the individuals there and all too. So figuring out how to get it done. So with that, item number 10's executive session pursuant to 551.071, consultation with attorney, 551.072, deliberations about real property, 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations, and 551.074, personnel matters, board appointments, Canyon Economic Development Board. With that, time do we have, Joe? 5:11. We will adjourn into exec session. Thank you.
Stay away.